Thursday marks 20 years since Princess Diana was killed in a car crash inside a Paris tunnel.
For years, people have wondered what really happened to Princess Diana. Some believed it was just a tragic accident, but others thought there was a secret behind it. Now, something unbelievable has happened. Queen Camilla has been sentenced for Diana's death. How did it come to this? What will happen to the royal family now? The truth has finally come out, and nothing will ever be the same again. How Camilla became a suspect. For years, people have whispered, argued, and even shouted about Camilla's role in Diana's tragic story. Was she really just the other woman? Or was there something more? Let's go back to where it all started. Camilla and Charles go way back, before Diana was even in the picture. They met in the early 1970s and fell in love, but for one reason or another, Charles didn't marry her. Instead, he ended up with Diana, a young, beautiful, and innocent woman who seemed perfect for the role of a princess. But there was a problem. Charles never really got over Camilla. Even after marrying Diana, Charles kept Camilla close. Too close. Diana wasn't stupid. She saw what was happening. Imagine being married to a man who secretly loves someone else. That's what Diana had to live with. And she didn't just stay silent about it. In 1995, she sat down for one of the most famous interviews in history. Looking straight at the camera, she said the words that would be remembered forever. There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. Boom. Just like that, the world knew the truth. Diana was suffering, and Camilla was the reason. People turned against Camilla instantly. Even after Diana's tragic death in 1997, Camilla was still seen as the villain. When she finally married Charles in 2005, many people refused to accept her. Some still blame her for Diana's pain, and now, with new evidence coming to light, some believe she played a role in Diana's death itself. But how did she go from being a disliked woman to a murder suspect? Let's talk about it. New evidence that sparked investigation. For years, the case of Diana's death was considered closed. The official story was that she died in a tragic car crash in Paris, caused by a drunk driver trying to escape the paparazzi. But was that really all there was to it? Recently, something changed. New documents were leaked. Documents that, according to insiders, were never meant to be seen by the public. These papers hinted at a bigger plot behind Diana's death, something much darker than an accident. But that's not all. Some former royal staff members, who had stayed quiet for decades, finally spoke up. One witness, whose name hasn't been revealed yet for security reasons, claimed that Diana feared for her life before she died. She allegedly told her closest friends that she believed someone was planning to get rid of her. And guess what? She even wrote a letter predicting that she would die in a car crash. That's chilling, isn't it? But here's where Camilla comes in. According to these leaked documents and witness accounts, there were people within the royal circle who saw Diana as a problem. She was too popular, too powerful, and, most importantly, she wasn't afraid to speak the truth. This made her dangerous, especially to those who wanted Charles and Camilla to eventually be together without any obstacles. Now think about it. If you were Camilla and you knew your path to becoming queen was being blocked by a woman the whole world adored, how would you feel? Some believe Camilla didn't just wait for fate to remove Diana. She helped make it happen. But is that really true? Why the case was reopened. For years, people who questioned Diana's death were dismissed as conspiracy theorists. But when so many people believe something, can they all be wrong? The pressure to reopen the case had been growing for a long time. With the new evidence coming to light, authorities had no choice but to take another look. The big question was, if Diana's death wasn't an accident, then who was behind it? And if there was a plan to eliminate her, how deep did it go? Investigators started pulling old records, re-examining statements, and questioning people who had stayed silent for years. One thing became clear. There were too many loose ends in Diana's death. Too many strange coincidences. And the more they dug, the more Camilla's name started popping up. At first, many thought this was crazy. Why would Camilla of all people be involved? But then, when the leaked documents suggested that Diana had warned about a plot against her, people started listening. Diana had mentioned a woman close to Charles, who might have had a reason to see her gone. Could she have been talking about Camilla? The legal pressure leading to Camilla's involvement. As investigators gathered more evidence, the royal family stayed silent. They didn't want to comment on rumors. But behind palace walls, something was happening. Lawyers were being called. Meetings were being held. There was a real fear that this case could turn into the biggest royal scandal in history. And when the police officially announced they were looking into Camilla as a person of interest, the world went crazy. Imagine that. A queen being investigated for the murder of another queen. It sounds like something out of a movie, but it was really happening. Camilla, the woman who had spent decades trying to win over the British public, was now at the center of a criminal case. Some sources claim that when she first heard about the investigation, she laughed it off. She thought it was ridiculous. But as days went by and more evidence came out, she stopped laughing. She reportedly became paranoid, avoiding public events and staying behind palace doors as much as possible. And then came the breaking point. One of the former royal staff members who had been close to Diana was brought in for questioning. What they said has not been fully revealed yet, but insiders claim it was something huge, something that directly linked Camilla to the case. Whatever it was enough to push investigators to take the next step. Charges and key accusations. The prosecution wasted no time. They made it clear from the very beginning. They believed Camilla was involved in Diana's death. But how? What proof did they have? First, they talked about motive. Why would Camilla want Diana gone? Well, everyone knows about the love triangle. Diana herself had said it. There were 3 of us in this marriage. Camilla was always there in the background, waiting. But was she just waiting, or did she take matters into her own hands? Then came the real bombshell. The prosecution claimed they had evidence linking Camilla to people who might have had a hand in Diana's accident. They brought up secret phone calls, hidden meetings, and even documents that suggested Camilla knew more than she ever admitted. But here's the real kicker. The prosecution hinted that Camilla may have been working with powerful people. People with influence, money, and the ability to make things disappear. Could this mean the royal family itself was involved? Was there a hidden network protecting her all these years? The courtroom was silent. People were hanging on to every word. Was Camilla just a woman in love, or was she part of something much darker? Camilla's defense. Then it was time for Camilla's lawyers to speak. They had one job, to convince everyone that Camilla was innocent. But how do you fight against years of rumors, conspiracy theories, and a public that never really liked you in the first place? Camilla sat still, her face pale, as her lawyers argued that she had nothing to do with Diana's death. They said it was absurd. They pointed out that Camilla wasn't even in the country when Diana died. How could she have planned something so big? Then they played the sympathy card. Camilla was a victim too, they said. The public had hated her for years. She had suffered. She had been called names, blamed for ruining Charles and Diana's marriage, and now she was being accused of something even worse. They painted her as a woman who had simply fallen in love with the wrong man at the wrong time. And then came the biggest moment. Did Camilla herself speak? Did she take the stand? Yes, she did. She stood up, hands shaking slightly, and looked straight at the jury. Her voice cracked as she spoke. I did not kill Diana. I had nothing to do with her death. But then came the twist. She didn't stop there. She turned the blame elsewhere. She suggested that if there was a conspiracy, then she wasn't the one pulling the strings. Someone else was. But who? Was she hinting at the royal family? The government? Someone even bigger? People whispered among themselves. What did she mean? Was she telling the truth? Or was she just trying to save herself? Shocking testimonies. And then, the trial took another shocking turn. Witnesses started coming forward. Some of them had never spoken before. Others had been ignored for years. But now they had the world's attention. One former royal staff member claimed they had seen strange meetings between Camilla and people linked to British intelligence. They had overheard conversations about Diana being a problem. A driver who worked for the royal family revealed something even darker. He claimed that the night Diana died, there was already talk inside the palace about what had happened, before the news had even broken. How could they have known so soon? Unless they had expected it? And then came the biggest shock of all. A former security officer, someone who had worked closely with Charles and Camilla, took the stand. He looked nervous, wiping sweat from his forehead. He took a deep breath and then said it. "I was told to keep quiet. I was told Diana's accident wasn't an accident." Gasps filled the courtroom. Even Camilla's lawyers looked shaken. Who told him to keep quiet? Why? The judge called for order, but the damage was done. The jury had heard everything. The world had heard everything. Final verdict and sentencing. The courtroom waited. Hours passed. People outside were glued to their screens. What would happen? Would Camilla walk free? Or would this be the day justice was finally served? Then, the jury returned. The room held its breath. The judge asked the foreman to read the verdict. Guilty. The word echoed through the room. Camilla blinked as if she hadn't heard it. Guilty? Number that couldn't be right. The judge began to speak. He talked about the seriousness of the crime, the need for justice, and then finally he gave the sentence. Life in prison. The room exploded. Some people cheered, others gasped. Reporters rushed outside to break the news. Queen Camilla, now just Camilla Parker Bowles again, had been sentenced to life. And then came her reaction. At first, she sat frozen. Her face turned red, her hands clenched into fists. Then, suddenly, she stood up and shouted, "This is a setup! I didn't do anything." She turned to Charles, who was sitting nearby, his face pale and expressionless. "Say something. Tell them." But Charles didn't move. He just stared ahead, like he wasn't really there. Camilla tried again. She begged, she screamed, but no one listened. The guards moved in, grabbing her arms. She fought, but it was no use. They led her away, her voice still echoing through the room. And just like that, it was over. But was it? Because as Camilla was taken out, the questions still remained. Was she really the mastermind? Or was she just a piece in a much bigger game? And if she was, then who was still out there, hiding in the shadows? So, what happens next? Camilla has just been sentenced. The entire world is in shock, and now the big question is, where does she go from here? Camilla's fate. Now, let's be real. Camilla is not the kind of person to just sit back and say, "Oh well, I guess I'll go to prison now." She has spent decades climbing her way to the top. She went from being the most hated woman in Britain to the queen of the country. Do you really think she will give up that easily? Camilla still has powerful friends, expensive lawyers, and, most importantly, King Charles himself. He has spent years defending her, making the public accept her, and trying to erase the memory of Princess Diana. Would he just stand there and let her rot in jail? Absolutely not. So, of course, the first thing Camilla will do is appeal. Her lawyers will argue that the trial was unfair, that the evidence wasn't strong enough, and that she was targeted because of who she is. They might even say that the case was nothing but a conspiracy to bring down the monarchy. But here's the problem. Appeals take time. A long, long time. While the process is happening, Camilla will have to wait. And no, she won't be waiting in her fancy palace. She will be in prison. Well, Camilla won't be thrown into just any regular prison. She won't be sitting in a tiny cell with 10 other women. She is still the queen consort, and whether people like it or not, she has special status. This means she will likely be sent to a high-security prison for VIPs, where she will have her own cell, some level of protection, and probably more comfort than an average prisoner. One possible location is HMP Bronzefield, the UK's most high-profile women's prison. It has housed some of the most dangerous female criminals in Britain, but it also has private cells for high-profile inmates. Camilla would likely have limited contact with other prisoners for safety reasons, but make no mistake, prison is still prison. There are no royal servants, no fancy dinners, No designer dresses, just a small room, a metal bed, and a life completely controlled by prison rules. Can you imagine Camilla waking up to the sound of prison guards, eating simple food off a plastic tray, and having no access to luxury? Would she even be able to survive it? And then there's another question. How will the public react to seeing a queen in prison? Would people feel bad for her? Or would they celebrate, saying justice has finally been served for Diana? The monarchy's future. Now, here's where things take a dark turn for the royal family. Because this isn't just about Camilla. This is about King Charles too. Think about it. His wife has just been convicted for being involved in the death of Princess Diana. His entire reputation is now hanging by a thread. People are furious. The media is going crazy. Protests are breaking out in the streets. And the big question on everyone's mind is, can King Charles stay on the throne after this? For years, there were already people who didn't want Charles to be king. Many believed the throne should have gone straight to Prince William after Queen Elizabeth's death. Charles was never as popular as his mother, and now, with this scandal, his rule is in serious danger. The British monarchy survives on public support. If the people lose faith, the system starts to fall apart. And let's be honest, after this trial, how many people will still support him? The Queen was loved because she stayed away from scandals. Charles, on the other hand, is now right in the middle of one of the biggest royal scandals of all time. Some experts believe that he will try to hold on to the throne, hoping the public will eventually move on. But others think he might be forced to step down, either because of public pressure, or even because of a decision made within the royal family itself. And if Charles steps down, who takes over? Prince William. Will this scandal lead to the end of the monarchy? Now, this is the biggest question of them all. Could this be the final nail in the coffin for the British royal family? We have to remember, the monarchy has already been struggling. Younger generations are losing interest. Many people feel like the royal family is outdated, unnecessary, and a waste of taxpayer money. But this could push things over the edge. For decades, people have suspected that Diana's death wasn't an accident. Now, with Camilla's sentencing, many will see this as proof that something dark has always been lurking within the royal family. And when the public loses trust, it's very hard to get it back. Imagine this. Millions of people demanding the monarchy be abolished. Protests outside Buckingham Palace. Governments debating whether to cut off funding to the royals. Could we really see the end of the monarchy in our lifetime? One thing is for sure. After this scandal, the royal family will never be the same again. But now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Camilla deserves this sentence? Will Charles survive the backlash, or is his reign doomed? And most importantly, do you believe this could be the beginning of the end for the British royal family? Let's talk about it in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. And if you don't want to miss the next update on this insane royal scandal, subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to know when I drop a new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
At the time it was awkward, I was a bit shocked.
I just didn't want to be alive anymore.
Prince Harry has just revealed something shocking, something that could change everything about Meghan Markle. For years, their story has been full of surprises, drama, and mystery. But this new discovery is different. It's something no one saw coming, something that could turn their entire world upside down. People have always questioned Meghan's past, her choices, and even her true intentions. Some believe in her, others doubt her. But now, Harry has found something that might finally bring real answers. What is it? How will it change the way we see Meghan forever? The truth is out, and nothing will ever be the same again. The shocking discovery. Something big has just come out, and it might change everything we thought we knew about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. It's the kind of revelation that makes you sit up and ask, wait, what just happened? Prince Harry has discovered something that not only affects Meghan, but also shakes the very foundation of their relationship with the royal family. This isn't just another news story. This could explain so much about why they left the royal family, why they spoke out, and why the world has been so divided about them. According to sources, Harry recently came across new information, something he didn't know before. Some say it was a leaked document. Others believe it was a confession from someone close to the royal family. But whatever it was, it changed his perspective. It wasn't just about how the media treated Meghan. It was about the role certain members of the royal family may have played behind the scenes. For years, Meghan has said she felt unsupported, isolated, and even targeted. She claimed there were efforts to make her life difficult, to control the narrative, and even to push her out. Many dismissed her as dramatic or exaggerating. But now, with this new discovery, Harry is seeing things differently. If this revelation proves true, then Meghan may have been right all along. How he reacted. Imagine discovering something that makes you rethink everything. That's what Harry is going through. He always believed that leaving the royal family was the right choice. But this new information might be making him realize just how deep the situation really was. Was he angry? Absolutely. People close to him say he felt betrayed, not just for himself, but for Meghan. He has spent years defending her, standing by her side, and trying to protect her. But if this revelation shows that people in his own family worked against them, then that's a level of betrayal no one can prepare for. Harry has always been emotional when it comes to Meghan. We've seen him tear up when talking about how the media treated his mother, Princess Diana. And we've seen the same fire in his eyes when speaking about Meghan's struggles. But this time, it's different. Because now, it's not just about public perception, it's about his own family's involvement. Does he regret leaving the royal family? Probably not. But this could make him regret ever trusting certain people within it, and that's a painful thing to realize. How Meghan feels about it. For Meghan, this moment might be both heartbreaking and validating. Imagine spending years trying to tell people your truth, only to be told you're making it up. And then finally, someone, especially your husband, finds the proof. That's what's happening here. Has Meghan responded publicly? Not yet. But if we know Meghan, she will wait for the right moment. Whether through an interview, a documentary, or even just through sources close to her, we will hear her side. And when we do, it will be powerful. Because this isn't just about the royal family anymore. It's about truth. It's about what she went through, what she survived, and how she came out stronger. If this revelation proves her right, then she finally has something she never had before. Undeniable proof that she wasn't just making noise. But at the same time, this is painful for her. Because while she has moved on, while she has built a life with Harry and their children in the US, this discovery forces her to relive the past. And that's not easy. Impact on the royal family. So, how is Buckingham Palace reacting to all of this? The answer is silence. Total silence. And that silence speaks volumes. Whenever something controversial about the royal family comes out, they follow one simple rule: never complain, never explain. But sometimes, silence is louder than words. And right now, the world is watching, waiting to see if they will finally break that rule. Behind closed doors, sources say there is tension. The royal family has already dealt with so much drama because of Harry and Meghan. The Oprah interview, the Netflix series, the book Spare. They thought the worst was over. But this new discovery, it's bringing back all those old wounds. And the biggest question now is, who in the family knew about this? Who was involved? And most importantly, will anyone take responsibility? King Charles, Prince William, and Kate's role. Let's talk about the three people who are most affected by this. King Charles, Prince William, and Kate Middleton. For King Charles, this is another blow to his already complicated relationship with Harry. As a father, he may feel sad that things have reached this point. But as a king, he has to protect the monarchy. Will he reach out to Harry? Maybe. But will he admit any wrongdoing? Highly unlikely. Then, there's Prince William. His relationship with Harry has been cold for a while now. They were once the closest brothers, but now they barely speak. If this discovery suggests that William knew something and didn't tell Harry, that could make things even worse between them. And finally, there's Kate. She has always been seen as the perfect royal. But what if this new information changes that? What if she was more involved in the Meghan drama than people realized? That's a question many are now asking. Will there be consequences? This could change everything for Harry. Right now, he and Meghan are already out of the royal family, but they still have connections. They still have titles. They are still technically the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. But could this be the final straw? Could the royal family strip them of their titles completely? Some royal experts say yes. Others believe the family will just try to ignore it and move on. But one thing is clear. This will affect Harry's place in the royal family forever. What's next for Harry and Meghan? So, what happens now? Will Harry and Meghan speak out? Knowing them, they won't stay silent for long. Whether it's through a statement, an interview, or even another Netflix special, they will share their side. And when they do, it will be big. But will they ever return to the UK? That's a tough question. If this discovery makes Harry lose even more trust in his family, then the chances of him ever moving back are close to zero. At the same time, if this revelation forces the royal family to admit their mistakes, could there be a path for reconciliation? For now, it seems like Harry and Meghan are focused on moving forward, but the past keeps pulling them back in. Public opinion shift. The final and biggest question. How does the world see Meghan now? For her supporters, this is proof that she was always telling the truth, that she was mistreated, that she deserved better. For her critics, well, some may still not believe her. But even they will have to admit, if Harry himself has uncovered something, then there's more to the story than they thought. This could be a turning point. Meghan has faced so much backlash over the years. But if this new discovery truly changes everything, then maybe, just maybe, people will finally see her differently. Whatever happens next, one thing is clear. This changes everything. Prince Harry's discovery has left more questions than answers, and the world is watching closely to see what comes next. Will this bring Meghan Markle into a new light, or will it only add to the mystery surrounding her? Only time will tell. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more updates. Hit the notification bell so you never miss the latest twists and turns in this ongoing saga. Stay tuned, there's always more to the story. The bodyguard says that the image of her awake, even if somewhat disoriented, is both heartbreaking and comforting. It's comforting because she was not instantly gone. Heartbreaking because it highlights that help arrived, but still couldn't save her. He also indicates that Diana actually had a faint pulse while being transferred to the ambulance. That small sign of life gave paramedics hope that they could pull her through once they got to the hospital. He mentions how the fireman, or Gallon, was stunned when he learned the victim he tried to save was Princess Diana. He had no clue who she was in the immediate moment. He was just doing his job, attempting to save a blonde crash victim with minimal visible injuries. The bodyguard insists this detail underlines why so many claims about a conspiracy to have her killed don't ring true. Nothing about the crash scene looked staged. It was chaos and confusion, and no one had a clue they were dealing with royalty. Just people in dire need of help. In the ambulance, Diana slipped in and out of consciousness. She reportedly went into cardiac arrest, prompting frantic attempts at CPR. The bodyguard has heard from those who were there that for a few short seconds, it seemed like the medical team got her heart beating again. That glimmer of hope didn't last. The internal injuries that no one could immediately see would prove fatal. She passed away at the hospital hours later while surgeons tried to fix the rupture near her heart. To this day, people argue about whether things could have been different if Diana had been rushed to the hospital faster, or if the ambulance had used a different route. The bodyguard is honest in his stance. We'll never know. He's heard the paramedics argue that the French approach to emergency care is different from the British style, that on-scene stabilization took priority over immediate transport. Regardless, it's clear Diana was far more severely hurt than her outward appearance suggested. In the end, her final words were likely the bewildered murmur of someone who realized something horrible had happened, but wasn't totally aware of how life-threatening it was. The paparazzi dilemma. The final puzzle piece is the paparazzi. For a while, the entire world blamed them, and many still do. Some say that if it weren't for the relentless chase, the driver wouldn't have sped, and Diana wouldn't have died in that tunnel. Others argue that while the paparazzi's behavior was bad, the bigger problem was the presence of an intoxicated driver behind the wheel. The bodyguard offers a more nuanced view. In his mind, the paparazzi were definitely contributing to the tension and panic, but the entire security apparatus around Diana had collapsed under the weight of her newfound independence. He insists that the paparazzi's aggression was no new phenomenon. Diana had faced them from the moment reporters learned of her relationship with Prince Charles all those years ago. She was used to stepping off a curb while a cluster of cameras blocked her path. She had even cooperated with some journalists in the past, trying to harness the media's power to promote her charitable causes. But her romance with Dodi brought a new level of frenzy. Tabloids couldn't get enough of the millionaire's playboy son and the world's most famous ex-royal. Everyone wanted that exclusive shot, maybe a kiss, a whisper, a moment of tension. The financial rewards for such photos were enormous, spurring the paparazzi to drive recklessly through Paris in pursuit. Yet the bodyguard says it's too simplistic to say the paparazzi alone caused the crash. He points out that Dodi was also determined to slip away undetected, rushing out into the night against any better judgment. The security detail was so scattered that they ended up relying on a deputy head of Ritz security with an unconfirmed blood alcohol level. The bodyguard calls it a perfect storm. Sure, the paparazzi's pushy presence was the flashpoint, but every step up to that point was flawed. He believes that if any single safeguard had been in place, say, if a professional chauffeur with a sober background had been driving, Diana might have arrived safely at Dodi's apartment. The paparazzi were intrusive and callous, but they weren't the sole reason the car crashed at high speed. He also remembers hearing about how some paparazzi, after the accident, rushed forward with cameras instead of offering help. That, he says, is a moment that reveals how twisted the tabloid culture was. Emergency personnel had to push them back. Meanwhile, the bodyguard was fielding frantic calls from staff wanting updates on Diana's condition. Some paparazzi claimed they were just doing their jobs, while others insisted they had tried to help once they realized how severe the crash was. Regardless, the damage was done. In the months and years after Diana's death, there was a global outcry over paparazzi tactics. People demanded new laws, new protections. Yet, the bodyguard feels that the world has a short memory. Over time, sensational pictures still fetch high prices, and paparazzi culture hasn't disappeared. In his view, Diana's death could have led to a real overhaul, ensuring celebrities or public figures were better shielded from reckless pursuit. Instead, the conversation fizzled out, overshadowed by conspiracy theories, official investigations, and changing headlines. He calls the entire night a giant security failure, because so many systems that should have protected Diana left her exposed. She was no longer a royal highness with tight palace protocols, and she hadn't yet established her own bulletproof network of experienced security. Dodi's wealth and connections, ironically, did not translate into the safest possible environment. The paparazzi just turned up the pressure, turning a risky strategy into a lethal one. Confrontations with the royal establishment and legal hurdles. When the shocking car crash in Paris claimed Princess Diana's life, millions worldwide turned to the royal family for comfort and answers. Many people felt the monarchy should have offered a warmer, more transparent response to the tragedy. Suddenly, a quiet tension seeped out into the open. Private frustrations boiled over, and individuals searched for someone to blame. In the middle of this storm stood the princess's on and off security circle, a small group of men charged with keeping her safe, yet powerless on that fateful night. Eventually, one of these men chose to speak out. For years, the bodyguard had been more than just a silent figure in Diana's orbit. He knew the lines of succession, the restrictions of palace protocol, and the consequences of stepping out of place. But in the aftermath of the accident, the royal establishment tried to close ranks. That's when he realized there might be more at stake than simply defending the public image of the monarchy. Documents needed signing, hush-hush agreements were laid on the table, and he braced for confrontation. Some key palace aides wanted a smooth, simple narrative. Yes, it was all a terrible accident. Blame the driver. Condolences to the family. Let us move on. But the bodyguard felt something else brewing. Countless awkward questions nobody wanted to address. Had the princess been left with subpar protection once her divorce was finalized? Why did everything feel so uncoordinated that night in Paris? Why were certain eyewitness accounts brushed aside? The tension with the monarchy did not take the form of a flashy showdown in the corridors of Buckingham Palace, but rather subtle forms of pressure. Insiders murmured about whether the bodyguard should sign non-disclosure papers. Close associates hinted that legal trouble might arise if he ever contradicted official statements. To him, it was all too obvious that some corners of the royal establishment saw him as a loose end, someone who had no official place in the firm once Diana was gone. Others within the palace were more empathetic. They quietly admitted there was a deep sadness in how Diana's final hours played out, and they feared the scandal could spin out of control if too many conflicting stories emerged. The bodyguard saw it from both angles. The monarchy had lost one of its brightest stars, and the entire institution was staggering under public grief and growing media hostility. He also became wrapped up in the complicated swirl of legal proceedings. French authorities launched an investigation into the crash. British officials monitored from across the channel, keen to see how the blame game would unfold. Paparazzi who had chased Diana's car were briefly detained, then released. Some tabloids even tested the waters of sensational conspiracy theories, claiming that Diana had been targeted by shady forces. The bodyguard recalls feeling torn between his loyalty to the memory of the princess and the rules that came with any brush against royal life. Stepping forward could place him on a collision course with powerful individuals who had no interest in seeing the official reports questioned. He wasn't alone. Other staff members, including the late Diana's aides and butlers, also faced tough choices about talking to the media or cooperating with various legal teams. A few who had once been close to the princess gave interviews that stoked further allegations of a cover-up or hints of neglected safety protocols. The bodyguard, though, wanted to keep his head above water, mindful of not just the monarchy's lawyers, but also Dodi Fayed's father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, a man determined to prove a larger plot was at work. The tug-of-war between different factions left him exhausted. Why he's breaking his silence now? After the crash, the bodyguard didn't immediately rush to the press. He was haunted by guilt and plagued by nightmares about that chaotic night in the Pont de l'Alma underpass. He knew his story could easily be twisted or overshadowed by the frenzy of tabloid headlines clamoring for shocking details. For years, he remained in the background, trying to find normalcy in a world that could not stop talking about Princess Diana's death. When he looked in the mirror, he saw the face of someone who felt he had let down the one person he was supposed to protect. No matter how many times people pointed out that he wasn't the driver, and that Diana had made her own choices that night, he still shouldered the regret. He also carried around his memories of Diana. How she sipped tea with staff in the early evening, how she quietly supported her sons, and how she faced cameras with an almost unearthly calm. But he was aware of her private pain as well. Opinions about Diana had become polarized. Some cast her as a saintly figure. Others claimed she was manipulative. He knew her best as a kind, flawed individual under too much pressure. He found it increasingly painful to watch her legacy boil down to conspiracy theories, paparazzi standoffs, and old footage of that final summer with Dodi Fayed. Every few years, major anniversaries of Diana's passing triggered a wave of press coverage. The bodyguard would get calls from old colleagues or journalists, each seeking exclusive anecdotes. He consistently refused, telling himself it was better to let the official narrative stand. But time can change perspective. As he saw documentaries and articles sensationalize the same old angles, he began to suspect that people might benefit from a fresh viewpoint. Someone who had lived in her shadow. Someone who had no interest in fanning conspiracy flames, but also no desire to whitewash the chaos of that final night. Why speak out now? He says it was a slow process, not a single event. He began talking confidentially to a therapist, struggling with the trauma of seeing the princess lying in the wrecked car, her eyes sometimes fluttering as first responders tried to keep her alive. He confesses to nights spent awake, replaying the same images. Headlights cutting through smoky air, paparazzi yelling. The terrifying moment he realized it was Diana in mortal peril. As the nightmares persisted, he felt a need for catharsis, not just for himself, but for the public that still aches when they remember those headlines. So he decided enough was enough. He was done hiding behind the hush-hush environment that typically surrounds royal staff.